and to lend my voice to other members who are going to speak about a border that needs to be secured. About 3 years ago, we had about one half million illegal crossings. 2 years ago, we had 2 million illegal crossings. Now we're hearing in another 12 months, or in the last 12 months, almost 3 million illegal crossings, and that's likely to be that number or go higher. We have lost control of the border. Now, when you think, what does it mean? Because that's a great top-line comment for somebody from some political stripe to make, but what does that really mean? When you get to that level of illegal crossings, you're inviting some of the worst crossings that could possibly happen. Now, let's keep in mind, there are a number of people that are escaping dangerous situations in their country of origin. There are people who probably rightfully should be in the United States or some safe third country because they're fleeing a dangerous situation in their country. Think Nicaragua. Think Ukraine. But we've reached a point to where we actually have a debate on the Senate floor about whether or not we need borders at all. Or we have other people that just say build a wall. And frankly, I think they're both wrong. I'm not here to talk about building a wall that's over 1,000 miles long that goes from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf. What I'm talking about is securing the border. And if you go down to the border as I have, you would understand why. There are simply certain sections that you need to secure. You need to secure it so Border Patrol, who has primary responsibility for securing the border and orderly entry, can have control over the situation. They can't today. As a matter of fact, if they were all back on the line today and we hadn't put together a viable border security strategy, they still couldn't do their job. But now, with the numbers that we have coming across the border, they're not on the front line. They're not interdicting cartels. They're not arresting and detaining what they call the Sinaloa Air Force. This is something amazing. We have engaged the Border Patrol officers in so many things that have nothing to do with securing the border that the cartels, one of the biggest ones, Sinaloa, has what the Border Patrol call their Air Force. They've literally seen them get in ultralight planes with 6 or 7 people flying drugs into the United States, dropping the payload, and going back. They say that that's become a thing. It's not just an anecdote, but another device that the Sinaloa cartel is using. Now, how could they pay for the ultralights or their Air Force? Because they're making over $800 million a year in human trafficking. You don't cross the southern border without paying a toll. And that toll is paid to really a whole global network of people that find someone who wants to go to the United States. They say, you're from this country of origin. This is what it's going to take to get you here. They even advertise in certain countries that they'll get you to the United States illegally if you pay a toll. And that toll can be at $5,000 if you're from a Central American country to $50,000 or $60,000 if you're from China. And we've had thousands even from China of the latest report and a huge increase. So the lack of border security, the lack of controlling the border is paying the very same cartels that are pumping our nation full of poison that we call fentanyl. It's very likely that that Air Force I talked about was dropping some sort of an opioid. And even more likely, statistically, since 80,000 people a year are dying from fentanyl overdoses, that it was that poison. So we're allowing an unsecure border to enrich the cartels so they can poison Americans. 80,000 a year, that's not a number that's in dispute. So we have to secure the border. And I said it's not a 1,000-mile long wall. I mean, if you go to the border, as I have several times, it makes no sense to put a 30-foot wall on top of a 500-foot cliff, right? If they've made it that 500 feet, they're probably going to make it the additional 30. But maybe you need technology there to know that people are going through that path. It's highly unlikely. But there are other areas, and I'll use one that the last visit to Arizona was in. It's called the Yuma sector. It's in the western part of Arizona headed to California. There is a gate there. It's only about 12 feet wide, a little bit less wide than the dais down there, that 3 years ago had 8,000 illegal crossings. 2 years ago, it had 200,000 illegal crossings through a gate like that, not through a big wide expanse of 7 miles since near that gate, but through a gate like that. And last year, 300,000 crossings. Thousands of people from Russia, thousands of people from China, and a number of other countries are paying a toll to be delivered across the border. Many of them fly into Mexico City, get a transfer flight down to Mexicali, take a cab down to the border, and come across the border, as long as they pay the cartel a toll. We have lost control of the border. We have Border Patrol law enforcement officers that are in babysitting and bus business right now. We have less than half of the people who are sworn to protect our southern border doing jobs that have nothing to do with what they swore an oath for. And we're turning a blind eye to the death and the destruction that's happening here in the United States, and to all the people who are paying the toll and making the dangerous track here to begin with. So, Madam President, you can't fix a problem until you know you have it. And our colleagues here in the Senate need to recognize that the border is a problem. And people like me, I don't come out here and do a fire and brimstone speech on I'm a Republican and they're a Democrat, we're good, they're bad. I have worked on several bipartisan bills that people can agree with the nature of the problem and solve it. And this is a problem that's having deadly consequences, and this administration, President Biden, has rolled back policies in his 2 years here who are making the problem worse. It's solvable, but the members of the Senate need to recognize we have a problem, and the members of the Senate on a bipartisan basis need to come up with a solution. Thank you, Madam President.